Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have had to evacuate through Russia or were forcibly deported there at the start of the war. They've experienced terrible things like filtration camps on the borders, separation from families, cruel interrogations by Russians, and being forced to live in another country, often without money or documents, left stranded and struggling to leave Russia by themselves. It's even worse, of course, for children. They do not have the option to try to return home or get to Europe. Ukraine has been able to find and return a few hundred of these children, but for victory to be achieved, they must locate and return many tens of thousands. Even when the fighting ends, victory will not be achieved until all the children return home to Ukraine. Welcome to Silicon Curtain. All our content is also available on popular podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcast. Please do like, subscribe, and share the links around to help more people discover the important topics that are covered by our amazing guests. Iryna Kopanytsia, check on the pronunciation in a minute, is a women's rights activist and public speaker. She is CEO and advisory board member of White Ribbon Ukraine, an organization that campaigns against domestic violence and women's rights. Iryna was CEO of Miss Ukraine and is a successful TV presenter of numerous shows on Ukrainian TV channels. She is an acclaimed human rights advocate and psychologist actively supporting different charities, including the David Lynch Foundation in Ukraine, One Hope Foundation, children's hospitals, medical facilities, and has participated in developing a number of laws around women's rights and other causes. White Ribbon has campaigned in Ukraine since 2017 for a new law criminalizing domestic violence and coordinating with the European Parliament members on European rights. Iryna,
thank you for so long
to welcome
introduction.
You. There's a lot there. There's a lot I left out as well. You've done an extraordinary amount. But let's start with that sort of description of White Ribbon and its activities. And of course, from there, we're going to really tackle the story, the terrible story of the abduction of Ukrainian children.
White Ribbon is a world movement spread over 90 countries, which started and was launched by Canadian men in 1991. So the main key focus before the war used to be fighting against domestic violence and prevention of domestic violence. But as soon as war started, of course, we had a challenge. We had to give response to all requests and all social humanitarian issues and catastrophe that we have in our country. So now we work a lot with IDP, so with refugees from Mariupol, from Kherson region, from Kharkov region, from Energodar, Popasna, and many other cities, but started with Mariupol. Also, we've been working, our group of psychologists been working with war crimes victims, so it's raped children and women after deliberating of Kiev region, and many other topics, because you cannot just choose that you work with women, but these women, they have families, they have their husbands that are fighting, and all this PTSD, for example, it's problem of all our nation. So probably and me and all our people around, not only refugees or not only militaries or not only people from occupied territories. And of course, as soon as you touch one topic, then it's like a chain reaction. This topic touch another one topic, and so from the beginning of the war, we've been involved in so many issues which we never faced before, and I hope all other people will never face it still. So it was some issues on kidnappings issues in Europe, some pedophilic issues, some we opened and helped to investigate some criminal cases in Europol. So it's the war. When it's the war, so all I guess maybe all bad people all over the world trying to come here and to do something, to have some profit here. And then finally we came to the problem of kidnapping children. So as soon as we know close and very well organization Save Ukraine and Nikolai Kuleba, who used to be responsible for children rights in present administration before, a few years before. And we were helping him with the law on mentorship in orphans' houses when I was the head of Miss Ukraine contest, and we've been scaling geography of this law. We've been helping with implementation. That's really great system in orphans' houses. And so from the beginning of the war, with all people around from our networking, we catch up with each other, and we started to cooperate in different directions. And frankly speaking, just after first few months of the war, I realized really the scale of the problem of kidnapped people and children generally. So dealing with a lot of NGOs locally who are on front line, after first half a year of the war, we had confirmed, but confirmed, it's like unofficially confirmed, it's by NGOs, but people there, confirmed numbers of like 300 approximately 1,000 children kidnapped to Russia. So it's not evacuation. It's kidnapping, because people were not asked if they want to go there. There were children from orphans' houses. There were children from killed parents. And for now, we know situation generally. Again, it's informal confirmation of our different partnering organizations, and numbers. It's starting from like 200,000 to up to 700,000 children. It's and sometimes when you tell something to tell these numbers to journalists, they don't believe. No, just imagine how many people is that. It's impossible. But how impossible if we know what was going on in Mariupol, how many people were killed there, over 100,000 people. And so that means that a lot of children from there could be easily kidnapped and transferred to Russian side. And we're talking, and this is just one city.
And we'll really dig into this topic, because I think it's one of the most important topics, which gets misreported. As you point out, language is incredibly important. Deportation sounds like something, sort of evacuation is a neutral phrase, whereas what's going on is a deliberate, systematic, state-sponsored process of kidnapping. But first, let's go back to the prosecution of crimes. So for a number of years, you've been involved in trying to improve civic society and the judicial system within Ukraine. You've been trying to strengthen laws around women's rights. One would assume as well that sort of children's rights go along with that too. How much progress were you able to make? Because if you are in future going to be prosecuting, and hopefully I've spoken to war hounds and others as well, and evidence has been collected of these prosecutions, the domestic judicial system, the laws in place will need to be relatively robust if they're going to be expanded to tackle the sheer scale of criminality that we're seeing.
I think that kidnapped children it is a part of war crimes that need to be applied for ICC, for International Criminal Court. And so this is very important part. So that's why it's important not just to get back from the human side of the situation, from the side of humanity angle, to bring back all the children, but also it's a part of our applications that need to be proved, confirmed, and applied to International Criminal Court. If a lot of organizations on the level of and governments and NGOs, they've been working, cooperating together with our committee that working on war crimes evidences and on application these cases. And so children issues for now were brought back only 386 by now, if I remember correct, children. And still we try to find proofs, we try to cooperate, and we ask all world organizations to help us with these proofs. We ask Vatican to help us with these proofs and evidences, any information inside Russia with these children, because we did a great presentation, a deep work on all open sources investigations and media information regarding kidnapping children. So we know some issues, like 3,000 are in Belarus, like 4,000 are in Crimea, were evacuated there, like 7,500 were in re-educational camps or in militarization camps. And so but most of these have not enough confirmation. I mean, something that can be used as an evidence for ICC. Yeah, we have for now, generally in our country, we have a data of 19,500 children, which is in data with at least enough information for that. But still we need to bring it back, to bring them back here.
That's a huge effort, isn't it? I mean, we started to see individual stories come out. I've spoken to a number of people who are involved in trying to identify children. Each individual case is not simple. Each individual case requires often a lot of force of will, a lot of persistence with, let's say, bureaucracy in Russia. It requires an incredible effort often, and money, to repatriate each individual child. Do you have a sense of the scale of work that's required on average for each case?
My personal opinion that we talking about numbers around 700,000 children. I'm pretty sure that from the beginning of the war, by now, numbers approximately like that. I cannot give you some documents or something on that, as you can understand, but on informal confirmation between us, between different NGOs, that's my opinion. I'm pretty sure that we're talking about these numbers. Then what would like to mention that yes, really each case it's a challenge. I mean, each case of each child. When you use all official, non-official, everything you can use, all your networking to get back the child. And so the greatest job been doing by Save Ukraine, of course, by Nikolai Kuleba. So mainly we are assisting him and we are help with the internal coordination in between our authorities to make it more coordinated, and also build coordination in between international criminal courts and the Ukrainian authorities, because we need to have from them very detailed instructions what we apply, how we should apply these specific cases. Because like if we apply hundreds of cases and then something is missed and that's it, that doesn't work. So it's a lot of nuances here that we need to follow. And we need to be accurate, and sometimes we need to be like not so emotional about each cases, because from the beginning of the war, each story, not only children's story. I mean, when I've heard on the first groups of our Mariupol women refugees stories, like every first meeting of introduction, at least 2 or 3 times, I just started to cry. You just cannot keep yourself, because when you hear some stories when someone had to feed the child in basement for 2 or 3 months and with a corpse to survive, you just cannot believe that it is real. But it is real, people. And first 2-3 months they just couldn't talk. They were like, looking through looking through the wall. They could only cry sometimes. Yeah, now of course Ukrainians amazing nation. Of course, now they try to start new life, to start or new job or new business, whatever. But that was quite a tough months, first months of the war. And sometimes when when we've seen from some more like cameras or when shared some other countries our alias, what was going in Mariupol, and we've seen like how many dead people, and they were just like cleaning city from these evidences. So we cannot fully even imagine what actually was going there while people were in basements.
And that's one of the challenges, isn't it? Because whereas the estimates of children cannot be fully verified, it requires living relatives to give those details, combined with let's say local records and so on. But there'll be many cases where the parents have either been killed and the children taken, or, as we know from the early stages of the war, there were filtration camps where parents were deliberately separated from their children, and often we don't know what happened to those parents. One must assume that in many cases terrible things happened, so the government isn't necessarily getting all the information.
That's weird when the whole world know exactly what's happening, but sometimes we cannot just prove that. Exactly, you're right, because when it's much easier to prove something when we have live, maybe not parents, at least some relatives. Yeah, you can do DNA test, whatever. And of course, it's easier if we have some documents or some real proofs that we can use and push the government or official authorities in Russia. But as we know, as we noticed from the beginning of the war, I guess this is the country that was quite close to the whole world, and during the war, people had opportunity to see who are we dealing with, who they are, like how can we deal or negotiate something with them as if they never follow negotiations. So each time when our officials, ombudsman or human rights or children rights, like Iryna Suslova, like Lubinets, every time when they I guess apply or try to apply or cooperate with official authorities in Russia, and every time we never know, it can help or it can get worse. They will help us. I mean, if they already did this, if they already moved children, if they already killed their parents, where's the guarantee that they gonna cooperate or that they are interested in cooperation? Because for them it's like life evidences. I hope that the other problem with the children, that as soon as time go ahead, months, like half a year ahead, they place children in educational camps. They make a huge deep propaganda work on them, and it's such a brainwashing that psychologically in 1 year it's completely different children. Some of them who are on the age of 17, 18, and guys, they put them in militarization camp, a lot of them in Crimea especially, and then they pass them to fight against Ukraine, so it's such a deep and from different angles complicated problem. I'm not sure if it's possible somehow to sort it out, even with international community, even with international organizations. And we never know how much deep involved Russia into like sex trafficking, into transplantation, business networking, and where they place. And I mean, we know that over 54 regions and places where children were deported around Russia. Also, we found some information, internal information, that over 100 points there were placed Ukrainian children. Some of them were adopted, some of them just staying in summer camps or wherever, and near some military storages, near some military units. So they just use it. They just use it as everything. Like on the beginning, they were using negotiation process just to take time to get prepared for something, and the same with children now. I don't know if there's sense to call for the help of United Nations, of all international organizations, because in my opinion, if they would have intention to help, they would already do that. I mean, this is, information is open. You've seen our presentation. It's quite a lot in open sources you can find over a lot to understand the problem.
Now, the ICC has, of course, indicted Lvova Belova and Putin himself, specifically in relation to the issue of child kidnapping. It is, of course, also, this is clearly a genocidal act. If you look at the terms of how that's defined internationally, and of course that is what the ICC is using as the basis of the prosecution. That this is just two individuals. They're at the head of a system and a pyramid. They may set the strategy, but there are thousands upon thousands of Russians who are implementing that strategy quite willingly. What is the chances that prosecutions will be constructed against more people within that that sort of pyramid of let's say administration that is carrying out this horrific crime?
We're also involved in some project of, like, again, volunteering project, like a database, another one, database of Russian propagandists, like middle level. So it's like middle level opinion leaders and middle level some governors and regional governors, which are calling for the war or used to call for the war, or of either officially or in their social network. So it's kind of database with proofs. And so we also work in this direction. I'm pretty sure that, I mean, generally, my opinion that each Russian, which is not trying to stop the war, it's kind of part of this story. But at least those data, it's for now, it's up to 7,000 people. And the procedure is like, we have to open and start criminal cases here in Ukraine. Going through all procedures to prosecutor, and then these criminal cases we need to apply then to international criminal courts, but following all necessary procedures and having all the details that is need to be for application. So I see this, I see this can be successful, but again, we're talking not about 100,000 people who are involved or the whole Russian army. We're talking about some propagandists or governors or just regular people who've been openly official in their social network or in some media calling for the war. So we're trying to find all categories to punish as many people as it possible, because I'm pretty sure if the world won't react and if we won't punish, then cruelty will just grow and grow. Because unpunished guns, they are acting. It's like, you know, if they cut your finger, you don't give reactions, and they cut your hand.
Yes, and that's a big theme of many of the interviews done on this channel, is that the a neutral position is not possible in these circumstances when faced with such sort of brazen sort of criminality. And one thing you mentioned there was the military camps and the militarization of youth. Do we know what percentage of the children potentially end up in these camps? Do we know the sort of structure and activities of this brainwashing process? And is it the older children, especially the male children, that are more typically targets of this kind of indoctrination?
Yeah, of course. Mainly it's male children, mainly it's grown up who are like 16, 14, 15, 16, 17 years. So I'm pretty sure that it's like preparation to send them after to the war, to participate the war. Mainly they place in Crimea. I don't know why, but mainly in Crimea. Like what we know that, I mean, confirmed from open sources and some investigations and journalist information and volunteers information, that definitely over 7,500 children been there. And there is like regular army trainings. I mean, they are dealing with weapons. They are it's a huge volume of brainwashing of Russian culture, if we can call it culture, after all that. And a lot connected with the church, a lot connected with like Russian national songs, symbolic, Soviet symbolic. Yeah, we see. I mean, for today, I mean, if we see historically, if we study what Russia was doing to other countries, her previous wars, so probably to those countries it was more difficult, like in Georgia, in Chechnya. Yeah, it was more difficult because world and internet was not so open for that time. Now, thanks God, it helps us a lot that we have social networks, we have media. I can stay in Kiev and I can be connected to the whole world, from Singapore to USA, wherever. And a lot of people from all over the world help us and journalists and volunteers.
And can a connection be made to the policies that we see unfolding in Donbass? Because, of course, Russia has controlled part of that area since 2014, and it's essentially placed people in that area within its own informational sphere, its own propagandist sphere. We've seen a lot of people from Donbass obviously grow up and be educated while the war's gone on. And we now suspect that many people from Donbass, as you say, have been militarized and then sent back onto the fronts, essentially Ukrainians forced to fight Ukrainians. What do we know about that process? And what do we know about the fate of Ukrainians who are forced into the Russian army?
We know that starting from 2014, exactly the same things that going on now after the beginning of full-scale war were happening there. The same, like rapes, dealing a lot now with psychologists and military psychologists. I find out, I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's our fault and my fault as part of this society, that I was not too much involved as it should be in all this war process from the beginning, from the real beginning of the war, because exactly the same cruelty was happening there. Exactly the same torturing, raping, stealing a lot, kidnapping children. It's very shame to see how much people affected by Russian propaganda. I mean, we see people that even our Ukrainian people that were helping or supporting Russian army, because last 8 years they've been brainwashed so heavily that some we already lost them as a people. I mean, I've been living and working in London in Belpottinger, and this is political consulting company, like 10 years ago. And for that moment, more clients they used to had from Russia, from like Gazprom, whatever. And I had opportunity to see myself how much they work on propaganda, how deeply, how much money they spend. It's billions dollars for media, for intelligence services all over the world. They were sending for decades. They've been financing that, and they've been sending their representatives, journalists, translators, teachers all over the world. So even now, we can't say that propaganda and brainwashing is happening only on Donbass or only in Russia. Believe me, so many people that were sent like decades ago, dozens years ago, even in America, in Europe, wherever, are still very, very stickingly related to Russia and still spreading their rhetorics, their narratives, and sometimes you need to be very, very smart and dig very deeply to detect where is propaganda, because it's like, you know, Overton window. There is such a system when step by step you can spread and implement any idea to the society. So we cannot say that oh, they are very stupid. No, they are not stupid. They are quite smart in that, and so we need to realize which enemy we are facing with, and we need to be double smart, and we need to join all countries together to fight this. Yes, in Donbass, frankly speaking, I don't know what we should do there on those region, and what's gonna happen when the war finish there, and if we'll succeed to get back Donbass to our country back. I don't know. For me, this is part of the questions which personally I don't have an answers. I just know that it's the same. I have a lot of people from Donetsk, of my close environment, close friends, and for them this war, full-scale war, it's like a second challenge of in their life, because once they already I had a friends like one girl with her son. She just went to Turkey just for vacations, and the war started, and she couldn't come back anymore. So she lost everything, and she had to come back to Kiev having nothing, like zero. and a lot of stories like that. And they still have some relatives. They still have the stories like some old grannies. They don't wanna leave their native city, native village, and they stay there. It's a great challenge for the whole generation of Ukraine. I hope we'll cope with all these PTSD issues, psychological issues, but I'm not sure. Probably, I hope we just will be able to present a better life to our next generation, to these children that will bring back from Russia.
And the scale, of course, is unimaginable. And I think that is one of the issues the media has. I mean, first of all, the media is sometimes quite shallow, and it moves on from stories very quickly. But the sheer scale of the abductions and the criminality is difficult to really grapple with. Do you think it helps to focus on individual stories, you know, especially some of the children who've been returned, telling their stories can help to start imagining the scale and actually the horror of the experience? Yeah.
You're right, 100%, because, you know, for months I've been contacting to all over the world, to some media, to some governors, to involve them into that issue, to help us to find proofs and to find some solutions, instruments, how to bring back children officially or unofficially, or to push in some negotiations or some geopolitical issues to push Russia. But still, when they heard numbers like 100,000, it sounded so weird, and for them, that they couldn't believe. And so you had to spend like hours and hours and dozens mails sending, explaining and showing information from NGOs, from volunteers, what's going on, what's happening, because people, and we cannot blame, yeah, because like we live here, this touch us. It's like the war in Syria or in Afghanistan, it didn't touch me so deeply, yeah. So I cannot blame the world that don't want to be fully involved in our problems and humanitarian catastrophes and issues. But you definitely right that when you show from the angle of each story, like life story, some certain child who lost parents, or whose parents were killed in front of him, or who was what was going on in those camps, and that he was forced to leave. It was not his desire, intention. Yes, this helps a lot. I mean, when you show these stories, this we can touch the heart of the people.
And another aspect of these stories, and I've read and listened to a few of them already, one aspect that comes through is some of these children, of course, they're slightly older, but they have tried to preserve the sense of their Ukrainian identity, and it's been continuously assaulted. The environment they're placed in is designed to wear away and undermine their very identity, and in fact to turn it toxic for them. And it's extraordinary that so many of these children have preserved any positive sense of that. What they've also experienced, it seems, is extreme discrimination. If they were to display any aspect of Ukrainian identity, whether it be language, culture, music, it gets confronted in a very harsh fashion. Where does this discrimination come from? Does it relate back to propaganda, or are there deeper roots to Russian discrimination against Ukraine?
Definitely, it's very, very historical and historical issue. I mean, I've never been studying such a lot our history as during the war, frankly speaking. Neither in university or in school, unfortunately, my fault. But during the war, I was digging so deeply, studying all these relations. How was it? What is the background of Russian imperialistic way of thinking, mentality? And I just realized that yes, just Russia historically was always trying to conquer all nations around. They were just conquering, and so many times they were conquering Ukraine. So many times they did genocide, like at least 2 or 3 times. It was not natural genocide. It was human-made genocide by Russians when we look through Soviet Union history. So it's just typical. I mean, just the world didn't know that, yeah. And maybe we, some generations. I remember the story of my grandmother and of my grandfather. They were telling when they were from Zaporizhia region, and they were telling when they had no food, they had to eat grass, and if they were trying not to give to authorities some wheat, they were beaten, they were killed. I mean, this is stories of our families, of each family has the same. So just the world had opportunity to see the real face of this nation. That's it.
It's really horrific, isn't it? And I've heard lots of stories about even in the Soviet Union, where there was definitely a higher value placed on Russian language and culture. Really sort of, ending up here, I think we need to embrace what the concept of victory encompasses. And of course, we're going to talk about getting the children back, but it also seems now that having Ukrainian as something that all Ukrainians know and can speak and interact with not only seems to be a key part of resilience, but it's becoming part of Ukrainian victory, getting everybody back and creating a coherent sense of being part of one nation, one language, one culture.
I think, yeah, we need to pay more attention in future for our identity, for Ukrainian identity. And as I see, among my networking, more and more people, even who used to speak Russian before, just in regular life, yeah, most of them switched to Ukrainian. It became like a principal position showing, and people started to share more like cultural, historical issues on Ukrainian culture, because it's unbelievably deep. We're an unbelievably historical country. Yes, I guess it helps to underline identity national, and to join nation, to bring back people, and coming back to these children issues, we still really need help from international community, from international NGOs that focused on kidnapping or human trafficking issues. We still need some ideas, some solutions. How is it possible to sort out this problem? We still need the pressure of our allies countries to push Russia. So maybe in this case they will a bit feel some fear to go ahead with that. Yes, someone who already kidnapped, but they keep doing that, like every day on daily basis. We hear new and new stories. They keep doing that. Means that they don't afraid of anything. That means that we need to react more strictly probably on these actions.
And the last question, really, and it's a very poignant, I think, point to end up, and it underlines really what you've been saying, is the amount of support that's required because of the sheer scale of the abductions, because of the difficulty sometimes in actually getting information, especially when relatives may be themselves in occupied territories. Even when the war ends, and of course most people watching this channel believe in Ukrainian victory and believe that it will come in the next year or so, even when that happens, we could be looking at a process of decades, years and even decades, to actually get all these people back. Do you think that's correct? And how important is it going to be for a Ukrainian government not to lose sight of the importance of continuing this work?
I think that most work that been doing in all social directions, it's mostly based, unfortunately, not on government, but on people, on NGOs, on people from business, on our militaries. I can say for them, definitely 100% for all this community of like grassroots organizations, NGOs, militaries. Yeah, this is very principal thing that we'll do maximum and we'll go till end to bring back our people, to bring back our children, to fulfill all evidences and to apply for ICC and to punish like everyone in all directions, like for propaganda, for kidnapping, for killing. So we all working in all directions to see which can be quicker confirmed, which can be quicker proved, and in which directions some actions and results can be achieved quicker. I would like more initiative and more activity from our government, frankly speaking.
Well, this is an incredibly important topic, Iryna. It gets far too little coverage and serious, in-depth coverage from Western media. People's outrage should be unlimited when they hear these stories. I only hope the important work you do continues and in fact sort of scales up as you get more support. And I wish you luck in the incredibly important work that you and your colleagues are doing.
Thank you very much. Actually, that's you doing amazing, important job. You support our community. You are fully involved. You support our people. You are broadcasting some amazing stories about some our unique people, unique expertise, unique experience. So you like a window to the world. One of the windows where we can share our problems, our issues, and give some requests to the world.
I hope it helps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope it helps to bring victory swifter. And Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini, Героям слава. Thank you very much. Thank you.